Hey there guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Happy Banned Books Week. And today is the last day of that week, so we will be getting into our last banned book of this week. So today we are going over The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Now, as you can see, this book has a couple of badges on it. We have the Coretta Scott King Award, and we also have Michael L. Prince Award for Excellence in Young Adult Literature, American Library Association Honor Book. It's also been described as absolutely riveting by Jason Reynolds, stunning by John Green, an incisive and engrossing perspective of the life of a black teenage girl by The Atlantic. The Hate You Give is a vital look at racism and police violence by Newsweek. Read Star's story because it's important, but read it also to feel, to heal, to empathize and enjoy. Read it because it's a damn good book. The Huffington Post. If The Hate You Give makes you uncomfortable, that's because it should. Christian Science Monitor. An inarguably important book that demands the widest possible readership. ALL Book List. And a portrait of culture and community and the young womanhood that feels fresh and necessary as Star's incredible voice. Entertainment Weekly. So, with all of these glowing praises, why is this book banned? There's really one simple answer. It's racism. This book has been among the American Library Association's 10 most challenged books in 2017, 2018, and 2020. It's been described as perversely vulgar for drug use, profanity, and offensive language, sexual references, and was taught to promote an anti-police message. The South Carolina Police Union challenged the book because of the inclusion of an almost indoctrination of distrust of police. They said, "We're going to put a stop to that." The book was not pulled from the South Carolina School District. This book was written in response to the Oscar Grant police shooting, which was the shooting of a 22-year-old African-American male who was unarmed. I've heard this book from people I know, not people I like, but people I know, as Black Lives Matter and Antifa dog whistle book, and let's get into it. The Hate You Give, the title comes from a Tupac song called Thug Life. It comes from a longer lyric, which is, "The hate you give little infants F's everybody." Essentially, it's a way of saying that due to systemic problems, there aren't many avenues to turn to. To paraphrase Thomas More, first you create criminals and then you punish them. It's a tale as old as time. It's not anything new. It's something that we've been dealing with since people first decided that they could hate another person. So, the book is the story of our main character, Star, who is a 16-year-old African-American girl who witnesses one of her friends gunned down by police while he is unarmed at a traffic stop. And it goes over all of the police procedural things. She has an uncle who's a cop, so she's got a little bit of an inside track on it, but she's still disgusted by how they're closing ranks and siding with each other in a way that they should not be. She's also approached by, essentially, it's called Just Us for Justice, which is a legal representation group that seeks to shield her, initially, she seeks to shield her from public scrutiny, because for the first part of the book, her family is able to keep it secret that she was the one who was there. She's just called an unnamed female witness, an unnamed witness, a witness at the scene, and they're able to keep her name out of it because they don't want death threats. They don't want the family owns a grocery store. They don't want the grocery store being robbed. The book goes into gang violence and the helplessness that causes a person to turn to that kind of lifestyle. This wasn't my experience. I didn't grow up in a very affluent neighborhood. I grew up in a very poor neighborhood. There was a lot of gang activity in my neighborhood, but at the same time, I was still an outsider to it because of the color of my skin, because of my parents and the way I was brought up and things just kept me from fully experiencing that in my growing up. The way Angie Thomas writes this book, Star is such a perfect neutral mask that I had no problems empathizing and relating to Star. It gets into PTSD without ever really getting into PTSD. It gets into nightmares and flashbacks, and in such a relatable way. Star has trouble finding her voice and finding who she is. And I think that's something that everyone can relate to. But especially if you're trapped between worlds. She goes to a very affluent private school, prep school. She deals with racism there, but it's not overt racism. It's the more sneaky kind of microaggressions and everyday kind of racism that she deals with more there. And she learns to call people out on it. And she learns who she can count on, and she learns who she can't. I have so much respect for this book and for this author, because things I never considered, it made me think about. Like, I had, at a previous day job, I had a coworker. We were talking about driving and driving styles and things. And I made a joke that I have a lead foot and I speed. I kind of assumed everybody speeds now and then. And my coworker, who is an older African American male, looked at me and says, "I can't do that. If I get pulled over, I might get shot." The thought of ever being pulled over, I walk around my car, I check my taillights, I check my headlights, go exactly the speed limit, if not a little under. I leave plenty of space in case the person in front of me brakes too suddenly, and it opened my eyes to something I hadn't considered before. And reading this book, every page was opening my eyes to something I hadn't considered before. It's an important book, and I was telling someone the other day, they asked me what I was reading, and I said The Hate U Give, and they're like, "Oh, is it good?" I'm like, it's amazing, and it's important, and honestly, I feel like every white person should read it just to understand and to gain some knowledge of what marginalized people go through. Like, there is some swearing in the book, but it's a book about and for high school students. So, I don't know about you, but in high school I swore like a sailor. I swore more than I do now. Only the most sheltered of sheltered children would be turned off by the swearing. It's not heavy swearing. Yes, there is violence. It's a book about institutionalized violence. That's kind of the point. That's right up there with the people who said Anne Frank is a downer, Mouse is a downer, Knight's a downer. It's like, well, yeah, that's the point. To say that you don't like the depiction of police in this, first of all, undermines the police that are shown that are good police officers, like her uncle. And it undermines the message of the book, that this coming from the outside view and being torn between things and wanting to do the right thing and not wanting to let evil things happen. Just read it. The book itself is powerful. It's worth the read. It's worth the time investment in the book. Please go read this book. This closes out Banned Book Week. What did you read any banned books this year? Do you seek out banned books? What do you think about books that talk about things that you're quote-unquote not supposed to talk about? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!